Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. As per usual, we are going to give you permission.
Recording in progress.
The session, and then with that, we'll open the media availability today with the overall thoughts from Coach on the week, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Coach, how has training been since opening the stadium on Sunday?
Well, as you can imagine, the guys were absolutely bowled over with the atmosphere and the quality of the stadium and Sunday's events in general. I think we come into a more normal week this week. So much going on last week, so much expectation, and rightly so. And I think the events of Sunday really, outshone probably what we were expecting. It was just an incredible day, but we've had a very normal week, a very good week. Players are in good mental and physical place, and we look forward to going out on the home stadium again. It may be a slightly different mindset to last week, where it was a bit of a party and an excitable environment. This weekend I would expect there'll be that same sort of excitement, but not so many parties.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open the floor for questions. We'll begin with Tim Sullivan.
Hey, Gary, you kind of mentioned it there, but how do you kind of get the guys in the mindset of, okay, we're going to be playing here a lot, let's get used to it, this is going to be our home ground, and they're just kind of normal games, even if it doesn't happen necessarily this weekend, but going forward from here?
Last weekend, I did feel Tim gave us a really nice foundation, and a big part of the first half a dozen or more games is going to be understanding the environment. I have to say, the sheer volume of the crowd and the acoustics in the stadium shocked me. I'm sure it shocked the players. It was an incredible environment to play in. That will become more normal. I've had a conversation this morning with a groundsman about, would you believe, the amount of moisture in the soil, and how we can sort of change that according to what we want it to be, a little bit softer, a little bit firmer, a little bit quicker, a little bit slower. You just wouldn't believe what these guys can do with a patch of grass now. So there's so much that we can continually get out of our new surroundings, and hopefully over the course of a shorter period of time rather than a prolonged one, we get all of the right pieces of the puzzle in place, and the players feel good about the situation they're in, and the fans feel comfortable in the stadium that they're now supporting in, and results start to flow. But I do think, of course, the first victory we get will settle everyone's nerves a little bit, and I've no doubt that everyone involved will give exactly what we saw last week, which was everything, and hopefully we get a little bit more luck and a goalkeeper not so inspired.
Thank you, Coach. We'll continue with Ray Hills from...
Hey, Gary, just wanted to get a timetable for how Teal's doing in his recovery. Do you have a timetable for when you expect him to return? And I guess in relation to that, Sunday is, marking this tight period for you guys, that you guys are combining weekend matches with midweek, both Open Cup and MLS. And how does that tie into what you basically alluded to at the end of last Sunday, with guys like Teal, Ake, and the like coming off the bench and offering you guys something?
Yeah, as far as Teal's concerned, he's been out for the first time this week, and he's doing some physical work out on the field, so he's moving forward very nicely. I mean, I'm not going to put a specific date on it, because I know Teal is very, very keen to beat any sort of expectations. I think the medical department are trying to keep a leash on him at the moment, so he's in a really good place. And I would think we'll see over the course of the next week or two a much clearer picture of when we might get Teal back into the group. As far as the coming fortnight, really, which sees the first couple of midweek games, I think in general, there's two things for me to really consider. Number one, the serious nature of the Open Cup game. It's going to be a tough game against a local rival. I wouldn't expect anything less. So I want to make sure that whilst, we're getting some fresher legs in the group, and maybe the start of some sort of rotational look, that the group that goes out there is more than capable of putting on a good display. And otherwise there's no benefit to us coming in around later if we're not going to take it seriously. So that'll be uppermost in my mind, and probably the reflection of players coming in you'll see from that, and then obviously we continue with those games that come thick and fast: Houston, Montreal, and then of course into Atlanta again. So I've got to try and get the balance right. I want to make sure that, of course, we maintain a good run and a good push in our league form, especially with games at home. But I'm certainly not going to take the game midweek against Atlanta lightly.
Thank you, Coach. Ben Wright with the next question.
Yeah, Gary, you guys have obviously seen Salt Lake before. What have you seen from them since you played? And I guess related to that, you've talked about wanting to be more attacking at home. Saw a really good display in the first 30 minutes or so against Philadelphia, and then I would say the result in Salt Lake was one of the better attacking performances, albeit only with a goal. How do you keep that up against them at home this weekend?
Well, firstly, to try and harness the energy of the crowd and the new facility. I think the guys found that in the opening exchanges. They managed to, I think, control themselves and the game very, very well, given the opening fixture there and the situation that we were in. Salt Lake looked like they've gone back to a back four, although you can never tell with any team. They've played with a back five, and it wouldn't be a shock for them to do that. However, good result of the weekend in a back four. I think you have to expect that might well be the case. Honestly, I think it's Pablo's preferred system and style. And what they've been able to do up there is put together over a period of time now a shape and a system and a mindset, more importantly, that consistently sees them in games. Now, you're going to throw at me that they got an absolute drubbing in New York, which doesn't really reflect that. But I do think they're anomalies. This is not a team that's going to happen to very often. They don't play that way. They don't take that amount of chances for the game to go that way. But what I think he's been able to do is set up a very strong unit. The understanding within that is you give everything, you've got a chance of being in this group. You don't give everything and you're not going to be in it. And that's not always easy to set that tone. And I think Pablo's done a good job of underlining that for the group. And you're now getting some terrific industry out of that team. Very, very capable on the counter-attack. A lot of their plays are very bright, very vertical, and extremely effective. And of course, the personnel's going to play into an awful lot of how the game plays out. They've had a glut of injuries earlier on in the season. I know they've missed some players of late, but they've got some of those more senior guys back into the group. And I think with that, you're seeing a much more relaxed and professional outlook within their team. I'm expecting a really, really tough game. I'm not expecting anything much different to the Philadelphia game. I think their shape is obviously slightly different to Philadelphia's, but I think they're very similar in the way they play and what they're after. And certainly on a competitive front, there won't be an awful lot different.
Thank you, Coach. We'll continue with a follow-up from Tim.
Gary, Ben mentioned it a little bit there, but you guys had a fairly solid offensive performance in Salt Lake. How do you kind of adjust to be at home? I know during the length of the road trip, you kind of said you'd have the opportunity to be a little bit more open at home. Do you have to adjust it, or do you look at what you guys did against Salt Lake last time and say, hey, maybe we were onto something there, we don't need to change a whole lot?
I think the big difference there, Tim, was they played a back five that day. There were lots of matchups around the field that I think for the most part we were able to take quite a nice bit of advantage from, especially in open play. Really and truly, it was one of those games that, if I remember correctly, we should have come out of there with at least something. But, really let ourselves down certainly from the first dead ball situation of the game, which put us behind the eight ball. Honestly, I think there are some subtle changes that we can consistently make to the group. We've been looking at a couple of things this week, which I, of course, won't go into. But I think there are certainly some subtle things within our team that I can start to ask more questions of, that the players can start to consider in certain stages of the game. But, all in all, when you come and play in your home stadium, there are always some ingredients that you need to get the crowd behind you, to start off on a positive note and to build momentum. And those particular qualities in general can work wonders for confidence, for the overall feel of the game, and to allow players to get into their stride in the right areas of the field. So, there'll be a lot of energy, as you saw at the weekend. There'll be a positive approach. And, the defining moments and details in any game are always gonna be influential on the outcome. When you get in and around the goal, your choices, your execution, and maybe your connections good enough to take advantage of either some poor defending or some very good attacking play.
Thank you. We'll continue with Dre Hills.
Gary, going into not just Sunday, but this next week, as I mentioned earlier, just to follow up on my question, does that maybe mirror what you talked about at the beginning of the season in terms of looking at that first 8 block of matches? Now that you're in the stadium with the next slate, do you have a same set of goals that's similar to what you had in the first 8 games? And I guess a part of that would be with the thick amount of games. One guy who's on loan right now is Elliot Panico. Do you see the possibility of bringing Elliot back for some chance to get some minutes in the sticks?
Well, first of all, to look at the next block of games and what that means to us. I mean, it couldn't have been more difficult with the first 8 away games, of course, and I think expectations will certainly be different to the way that we went into that first block. We want to take advantage of our own games. You would say almost certainly that if we're going to be a post-season team, then we've got to get on, a decent run and as quickly as possible to maybe build some momentum. And we've seen before what confidence and that enthusiasm will do when you're playing at home. So of course it's important. The guys have got some targets to try and hit. I think it's always nice to have that in mind. As far as Elliot goes, I mean, Elliot's no different to any player that we've got out on loan at the moment. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability with no reserve team for some of our younger and developing players to utilise playing time, to gain that experience. Elliot's in a good run of form in Indy. Yes, there's been the thought about the possibility of bringing Elliot back. We'll keep monitoring that, but Elliot fundamentally is our player. We're very grateful to Indy for offering the time he's getting there and the experience he's getting now. It'll serve him incredibly well and the club. And we see Elliott as a future goalkeeper for this team. So we've got to get the balance right. What we also know is if we bring Elliott back, he can't go out again. That's the rules of the league. So do we bring him back to play in a game, taking into consideration that there's the possibility, of course, that we don't go through? Is that good for his development? Or is it better for him to stay out in this one particular case and get however many more games it is under his belt and be better off for it? So they're all the questions that are constantly being posed. I don't think there's any one straightforward answer. We won't be bringing him back for this game, this Open Cup game. But that doesn't mean to say that if we go through, we wouldn't bring him back in the future, or if circumstances change at the club, that we wouldn't bring him back. What I know is he's playing well, he's improving, he's putting himself in a much better position to come back into the group ready, if needed, at whatever point that is.
And Ray, with the final question for Coach today.
Yeah, Gary, I just have a question about Hanwal Abwana. We saw him not really play the last half of last season, and now he's been on the bench for, I believe, 4 games. So it seems like he's kind of working his way back in. What have you seen from him so far, and kind of what are you thinking of his involvement going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Hanwala unfortunately has picked up some very niggly injuries. I say niggly, they've touched wood, they've not been anything that's kept him out for long periods, but a couple of hamstring problems, a bit of a groin issue, quad. So he's been working through that end of last season into pre-season. I don't think my feelings on Hanwala have changed since he's been here. He's an incredibly talented boy. He does things in training that other players could only dream of. And I mean that. He is a really exceptional talent. The key to Hanwala's future is taking the opportunities in the first team and in the minutes that he gets, showing that he can be productive not only in a training environment, but under pressure, under the spotlight, and in meaningful games. And if he can do that, which he will definitely get the opportunity to do, then he's got a great future. Because if he can transfer what I see in training onto the match field, when it matters most, then he'll be a very, very valuable piece of this group, because he's a very creative and talented individual. He hasn't had many opportunities. Last year we had a bigger squad, and he ended up down the pecking order with people taking their chance in front of him, like Luke Hackinson, who came into games and made a difference. And I wanted to try and reward that. This year we have a smaller group. He has more of an opportunity to be in and around the starting group, or certainly in the 20-man roster. And that has been borne out in the way that the games have unfolded. We've only had a couple of injuries, but he's found himself in the group, and rightly so. His chance will come. As long as he's ready for it and he takes it, I'll be delighted, and so will he.